Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Yet we have another installment of Who's Better, and these things are always fun. You always do a good job of diving into the numbers and take a little time out to reflect back on players, athletes, teams, going all the way back. We talked football, we've talked baseball. We've got another baseball one for you today between Fred McGriff and Carlos Delgado, two people that baseball fans really know a lot about.
Well, the first thing that jumps out about these two guys is they both came up with Toronto in the late 80s, mid-80s. And Toronto put together some great prospects back then. Right. They had Jesse Barfield, they had George Bell, they had Lloyd Mosby, they had Cecil Fielder, he came up. So imagine having Cecil Fielder, Carlos Delgado, and Fred McGriff in your organization and being able to play first base. McGriff was the first one they let go. He wound up going to San Diego first, and then mostly known for his postseason experiences with Atlanta. I remember when Atlanta traded for him in 1995, the press booth or where the Braves did the games caught on fire. Right. And then, that was in '93. And then the Braves caught on fire, wound up catching the Giants, beating them. Giants won 100 games that year, and the Braves won 100 games. Then they lose to Philadelphia in the NLCS. But McGriff was always a guy that was pretty good during the postseason. He was a great fielder, and he was a guy that was a clubhouse presence. And he came over to Atlanta in '93, and he led them right away. Their offense picked up right away. So with McGriff, you have the fact that he was a team leader and he was a big presence in the clubhouse. Then Delgado comes a little bit later, and Delgado is just a beast. I mean, he put up some incredible numbers. His 2000 season was one of the best seasons in Major League Baseball history. I remember working for ESPN then, and we had the Players' Choice Awards, giving Delgado the Player of the Year in a time when you had Barry Bonds, when you had Ken Griffey Jr. Yeah, I mean, guys who put up major numbers. Mark McGwire. That year, Delgado 57 doubles, 137 RBIs, 41 home runs, hit .344.
Oh, that's insane.
For a batting average. Right. And he was good before then, but that was his really breakout year. Yeah. So we're dealing with two guys that are two very good power hitters, and not only that, but guys that can hit for an average as well. So if you're looking at their overall numbers during the regular season, you can see that the only separation is in games played, because McGriff played a couple more years. Right. Delgado, his last year with the Mets in 2009, he was putting up good numbers. Then he got an odd injury, and he never came back and just decided to retire. Again, he's from Puerto Rico, so he really didn't need to play. He wasn't as motivated to play as McGriff did, who was motivated to get to 500 home runs but never got there. You could see batting average, 280, 284. McGriff had more hits. But runs really for the amount of time, when you're talking about almost 400 more games, and there's only less than 100 runs between the two, less than 20 homers, because Delgado was a guy who really could hit for power. And then RBIs is very close, within 50, and you could see the difference with Delgado having a much, not much higher, but a higher OPS, despite not having as many home runs or as many RBIs or as many runs scored. So overall, Delgado's power numbers were better with the less games played, and he could compete with McGriff hitting the long ball.
Exactly.
So I'm going to show you in the postseason only because I want to show you how good Delgado was. Now, McGriff played more games, but Delgado in only 10 games, 351, 13 hits, 8 runs, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 1.19 OPS, very clutch guy, and a limited amount of opportunities he had. McGriff, I think of McGriff hitting a home run off the Yankees in Game 4 that hit off the foul pole. I could still hear it bang off that foul pole. McGriff was a very good player, too. 303 in 50 games, 218 plate appearances is not bad. 36 runs scored, 57 hits, 37 RBIs, and a 917 OPS in McGriff's postseason. And you knew how clutch he was with the Braves and how key of a component he was to those teams that made the postseason every year. Then if you look at their prime years. Now, for both of them, this worked out really good because it went from ages 24 to 36. So it's over a 13-year span for those guys. And you can't really get as close as these guys are. Plate appearances, only 5 separates them. Batting average, you have McGriff hitting for a little higher of an average, but the power numbers with Delgado are better. Right. More homers, more RBIs, a higher slugging percentage, and a higher OPS. And Delgado was, if you remember him hitting, he had 4 home runs in a game once with Toronto. My buddy Frankie Calanano scored all 4 times in front of him, the guy I played high school baseball with.
Right.
So he was a guy that could, and just he was big, and he was just scared you to death when you're watching him as a pitcher. So I think Delgado was a little more intimidating than McGriff. Now, McGriff was a big guy, but Delgado just looked mean.
Yeah.
And like he was going to hit the ball 1,000 feet. And McGriff was much more of a steady player and didn't give you the 450-foot home runs that Delgado would. He would hit balls into outer space. When you're looking at their individual awards, none of these guys, I don't think either of them are going to make the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Should they? Both of them have not scored high. They've both had the opportunity to be voted in. I don't know if they ever will. Maybe you'll get them on a shot in a year when nobody else is really there, and some writers remember them.
On the ballot.
Yeah, maybe that'll happen, but I don't think so. They've both been eligible for a long time and have not made it. For Delgado, you have 2 top 5 finishes and MVPs. McGriff, 1 top 5 MVP. Neither guy, I mean, McGriff definitely was a better fielder. You know, Delgado was kind of a Dr. Strangelove out there. He played a lot of DH as well. And then All-Star games. All-Star games really aren't the greatest component because you can get a situation where Delgado in the American League in the 90s had McGuire, had Palmeiro, had Mattingly maybe early on. Guys that were making Frank Thomas. I mean, come on. Yeah. Guys making the All-Star game every year. You only get 2 for that position. So that's why he only has 2. McGriff has 5, mostly in the National League. So he made more there. But if I'm going to pick a guy who's better, I saw Delgado play for the Mets. I saw him play for Toronto, and I saw him really shine in the postseason. McGriff, I saw just about every one of his postseason at-bats. And Delgado, for me, would be the guy I would take. Yeah. Because he's just more intimidating. He's going to hit for more power. He's going to be a bigger threat in the middle of that lineup to get me back into a game with his ability to hit doubles. So that one year, 57 doubles. So he was not just a home run hitter. And if you look at their overall contact numbers, there really is not that much of a difference. And if there's not that big a difference in strikeouts and walks, then I go with the guy with the better power numbers. And Delgado just had better power numbers than McGriff. In fewer at-bats, he almost equaled the numbers that McGriff did total. So both guys, though, I think the comparison of both of them, I was wondering who would be better when I was thinking about it. And both of them stood out to me because they're very similar, and they did a lot of things the same way. But Delgado's ability to hit the long ball better than McGriff, I think, is the key factor in choosing him. Even though McGriff was a better fielder, I just think Delgado is a bigger power threat and a bigger threat to have in a lineup.
100%. I think given a relative sample size between the two, I think that you're right. I think Delgado kind of did more with less as far as less games, played less games postseason, less games overall. I think initially in my head I would have thought Fred McGriff, but putting those numbers side by side, especially in the postseason numbers and the prime year numbers as razor thin as they are, I think if you gave Delgado the games and the at-bats in the postseason, he probably would have blown you away. Might have been able to make enough moments to get himself into the Hall of Fame. I think they're both a little bit off. But once again, great job crunching the numbers there. Who's better, Fred McGriff or Carlos Delgado? Really good job between these two guys, and for Mark breaking that down for us here tonight. Well, coming up next here, we're not talking about former Braves anymore. We're talking about the current Braves and this team finding themselves in the middle of a really, really thick division race. We'll talk about it coming up next.